Hey, Chris Lipe here with How to Sing Like John Mayer. This guy is an incredible vocalist, and his voice doesn't get enough credit, I don't think, most of the time, because his songwriting and guitar playing is so good. But what we don't realize, unless we really dig into his music as a whole, is that part of the reason his songwriting and his guitar playing are both so good is because his voice is so good. These three things work together in an amazing way in this artist. And unpacking his voice in light of his guitar playing and in light of his songwriting can unlock tons of things in our own creativity as vocalists. Yes, and songwriting and guitar playing. But this is going to be a little bit of a different study than we're used to. Yeah, we're going to talk about vocal technique. We're going to talk about placement and resonance. We're talking about range. But we're also going to talk a lot about conversationalism. We're going to talk a lot about how exactly his guitar playing leaches into his vocals and how his vocals leach into his guitar playing. It's going to be a fun study. If you'd like more help going deeper with your own voice, ear training, and general musicianship, the best place to start with me is by clicking the link below and joining my free voice course. After you've gone through those videos, there are lots of options from there if you want to work with me even deeper. We're going to start out by listening to some live vocals. This is where he really cuts loose. His studio vocals are great, but I want to set the stage with his live vocals here to drive home a few points. Here we go.
Oh, twice as much, hey, twice as good, and can't sustain like what I've could.
So we've all heard this song. Listen to what he's doing with the melody. There's lots of improv going on here. He is singing like he's improvising a guitar solo almost around a melody, around a set melody. What's so fun about listening to him live is you get a sense of that with everything. He grounds in a melody, but he is all over the place. And nothing he's doing is incredibly rangy or difficult from a technique standpoint, although he's pretty agile, and we'll talk about more of that later. He does some good runs. He's got good control. His pitch is great. I mean, there's a lot of great things going on. But I think the important thing to realize is he's not singing incredibly high or incredibly low or incredibly aggressively or incredibly quietly, but he is phrasing very, very musically and improvisationally. It's inspired. Listen on.
It's wanting more.
Yes!
Gonna send me to my knees. Help me.
Oh, we're going to listen to that again. And I want you to hone in on if this was a guitar player and if this was a guitar, listen to some of these runs. And I'm going to mimic some of it with my own voice as if I'm mimicking a guitar. So I'm going to delete the words.
It's wanting more.
Oh, it's not exactly what he's doing, but that's not really the point. We are being inspired by what he's doing and listening to that run and putting it in our own voice. But if I delete the words, it's actually easier for me to make it more of an instrument vibe rather than a vocal vibe, even though I'm using my voice.
Gonna send me to
I mean, right there, I've just learned something that I can put into a melody or a way. I've learned a lick based off of what Mayer's doing with his voice.
my knees.
How he switches up into head voice there. so many neat things to come up with here just in terms of his phrasing. It sounds like a guitar.
My knees.
Even though he bends that, my knees, you get this sense that he's, help me. And then how do your own influences seep in? So again, we're not going off of, right now anyway, we're not going off of like, oh, this is what he's doing with his resonance and tone, although we'll get into some of that later. We are observing how freely he takes the influence of his guitar playing and puts it in his voice. Yes, you can hear this in the studio recordings, but listening to him live, you get a lot of this, and it's super inspiring.
Gravity.
Now, even in this section here, where we've gotten more back into the main hooks of the song, listen to what he does with the melody.
Gravity. Stay the hell away from me.
Stay the hell away from me. Now, these sorts of articulations,
Away from me.
away from me, if we really want to start putting some of these things in our voice, the best way to do this is by thinking about a pentatonic scale and how it moves. And if we think about that on the guitar, a lot of us know how to play, if you're a guitar player, la, 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 la. It's a minor pentatonic scale. La, 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 la. If I have that in my head and can sing that freely, I'm intentionally not playing it for this lesson because, yeah, we can play it all day long. The point is to internalize it in our voices so that we can call on it in muscle memory like you would as a guitar player. So what he's doing here really is
Stay the hell away from me.
stay the hell away from me. Might be the simplified melody for that. Stay the hell away from me. Well, that's just E. That's just the pentatonic scale. And so if we know that muscle memory wise, if I can rattle off the pentatonic scale, major or minor, la, major, la, 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 la. If I can do that and practice riffing around with it, don't worry about not being able to do things fast right away. Get it in your mind so that these are accessible in the back of your musical mind. And then get inspired, get into these melodies, and practice rolling into the scale. It's actually not that difficult, but you have to give it time and patience. Don't try to go fast right away. Use the notes as sort of a backup, a way to lean into something else. Notice he's not that accurate with this run.
Stay the hell away from me.
Away from me. He kind of sighs out of it, but it's still inspired by that bluesy pentatonic vibe.
No, no, no. Gravity.
Yeah.
It's taking better man than me, yeah.
So this section here I love because he's just having a conversation. There's talking.
No, no, no. Gravity, yeah.
Gravity, yeah. No, no, no. Gravity, yeah. 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 I'm just, no. Gravity, yeah. I mean, there's pitch, but there's a range of expression that you would, if you were really getting into it just in talking to someone. No. Gravity, yeah. That's felt.
It's taking better man than me, yeah.
I love that note. Man and me, yeah. But then notice here, no pitch, no targeted pitch.
Yeah. Oh, now how can that be?
Oh no, how can that be? Just the blending of his precision, where he's really hitting some key notes like this beautiful improvised note.
It's taking better man than me, yeah.
Combined with the obvious conversational speaking that's going on.
Just keep me where the light.
Right here.
Oh, now how can that be? Just keep me where the light is.
Then he goes back into clear notes.
Just keep me where the light is.
Keep me where the light is. This is improvising around that pentatonic scale with a little bit of blues notes in there. But I can't drive this home enough. This is guitar playing with your voice, and it's utilizing that same sort of framework and mentality, and at the same time, putting in a little bit of conversationalism, which you should have in your playing anyway, with words. This is what makes his voice, and blending with his songwriting and his showmanship, it's really unmatched. Moving on.
And I'm free. Free falling.
One of my favorite performances of all time of John Mayer. I want to point something out here. First of all, he's low.
And I'm free.
And I'm free. But he goes into his head voice. Not out of necessity, out of expression, out of inspiration. And I think a lot of times we tend to associate, oh, well, that's too high for my chest voice, so I'm going to go into my head voice. This is not at all what your head voice should be for. Your head voice is a palette all its own. And by him going in like this,
and I'm free,
and I'm leaning into his chest, he could easily hit free, right? And I'm free, and I'm free. And then he really breaths it up right there. And he lets that go. Free. I could probably pull that off a little bit better. And I'm free. That may sound a bit contrived as I'm doing it here, but by working out these different arcs, even with such a simple phrase, we introduce an amazing amount of emotional connection and just interest, musical interest. So many times we get, okay, the words are, or the notes are, and I'm free, and we just sing it. He doesn't just sing anything. Everything is super inspired, and dare I say super calculated, at least at one point. Sure, he's acting off of inspiration here by quite a bit, and he's going off of muscle memory and getting into the performance aspects, but you better be sure that he has practiced this kind of articulation and expression apart from just sitting here or standing up in front of millions of people and singing.
free falling.
Yes.
And I'm free. Free falling.
Again there. Free. Letting that wash over you, letting that breath wash over you as he's modifying the melody here too, which I find super awesome. He didn't think that even for a moment probably that I've got to sing the melody the way that Tom Petty did. He's making this his own for sure, taking inspiration from Tom Petty, but a vibe all his own. Then we go here at the end. Listen to what he does with the end of this.
Now I'm free.
Oh,
Free falling.
free fall, not free fall. You've heard him do a lot of different things with his resonance, and we'll get more into his resonance in a minute. But that long free fall and falling, where he's walking around that, there's a certain tone that he's leaning into there, and it just sets up perfectly with the background vocals and everything. I mean, brilliant. Now listen to what he does at the end here. It gives me shivers every time I listen to it because it's so spot on, not necessarily from a pitch, although he has good pitch and stuff too. Listen to how he leans into that nasality right there. I'm a super warm nasal thing, and then he breaks into a non-nasal head. and I'm free, and I'm free. It's so freeing. Yeah. And then free. Again, this is this arc of a character within one line. This is not just, and I'm free. No, this is way more interesting. Nasality. And I'm free. There's a lot going on here that is missed because we're just in the song and we're in the mood. But when really, like I said at the beginning, when you really dive into this stuff, wow.
Free falling.
So good. Let's go on to some of his studio stuff.
If you don't wanna love me,
Some of his recent stuff here.
if you don't wanna love me, let me go.
Okay, so let's get into let's zone in on this one word here.
Let me go.
Let me go. I'm not doing it quite the way he's doing it. Let's listen again.
Let me go.
He's stair-stepping this. This is not go, go, go. He's letting it bounce just a little bit down. That's a neat articulation thing to practice, where we're kind of go, as opposed to go, go, go. We're using a function of vibrato to make this feel bouncier and freer. But the main thing I want to point out here is where his resonance is. He routinely will open up his nasality and play with that difference. Listen here.
Let me go.
Let me. Lots of nasal. Let me go. Let me go. This is partially how he gets that breathy, raspy thing going that we hear and love so much about his voice. He is definitely forward, but there's this aspect of letting his resonance come out, both his nasal cavity and his mouth. Yeah, let me go. Yeah, he uses a bit more breath, and you can even see it in the way he uses his face when he sings. Let me go, let me go. Where he'll shape his mouth. He'll do some of that to shape the way the tone is coming out of his mouth. But if he didn't have his nasal cavity free, this would sound really contrived. And it doesn't. It sounds resonant, focused, and dynamic. And this line really shows that.
Let me go.
You hear that? This isn't let me go. This is let me go. Hear the difference? Not let me go. If I were to sing the whole phrase like I sang the first few words, let me go. That sounds dumb. Let me go. Let me go. I'm bringing the go a little bit back, a little more nasal. Let me is a little bit more forward. I've got my face out of the way a bit more for the let me go. There's so much here that we can take around to different things. If I take this to a different part of my range and say different words, like I want to fly. I've used that before on this channel a lot. I want to fly. I want to fly. Or I want to fly. I want to fly. I want to fly. I want to fly. Getting into some of that Freddie Mercury vibe even. I want to fly. I want to fly. Without starting dark. I want to fly. And then brightening up. We lose the effectiveness of the line. We lose the engagement. And he's doing it very subtly, and he does it very subtly. But it's important to realize that it's It's dynamic. And that's one of the things he's so good at. Listen to the way this comes out on Home.
I'm running for the last train home.
I'm running for the last train home. Hear how much softer home, home. I'm running for the last train home. Just by subtly moving that resonance back and forth, we've created a lot more interest. And neither one sounds annoying. But if I were to live in either space, I'm running for the last train home, or I'm running for the last train home, it doesn't work. It's not in character. The character is defined by the movement within the dynamics.
Everyone's lying to make it on through.
Oh, this is another wonderful example. Listen to this weep.
To make it on through.
To make it on to everybody's lying. To make it on through. He backs off so much. Even in this low state, he goes into his head voice a bit there, but it's this moan that happens. And I'll bet this wasn't his actual intention. But he was backing off his air pressure enough
To make it on through.
to make it on through. And he just kind of saw what happened, felt out where his voice was going, kind of let it happen. This is more about that arc that we were talking about. Make it on through. As opposed to just make it on through. Make it on through. That's boring. Make it on through. Make it on through. Let your voice break and crack and moan a little bit. That in contrast with this.
Everyone's lying.
Everyone's lying. Everyone's lying. No, everyone's lying. We're really going to exaggerate it, which we should, so we can figure out where the extremes are and then dial it in musically. Everyone's lying to make it on through. So much there, subtly, dynamically.
I'm the same way too.
I'd like to call attention here to the way that he's not letting that note go forward. And this is part of songwriting and melodic development. Everyone's lying. He's holding out notes. He's really leaning in and resonating. And then, I'm the same way too. We're just talking here. We're just talking. And if we get too hung up on the melody itself without the expression, it might have turned out more like this. Everyone's lying. And then this. I'm the same way too. We might have held that note out. But this is contemplative here. I'm the same way too. Might as well have been that. Don't underestimate the down sections of your conversation. Part of what makes his songs so good is that they are conversations. There's contemplation. There's yelling. There's emotion in and out. All right, next.
There's no way we ever could.
Okay, first of all, listen to the way we're holding out a note intentionally, and then could is so short. There's intentional rhythmic play going on here between his voice, between what the snare drum's doing, between the little subtle things going on the guitar. All these things work together to make one unmatchable groove. A lot of that's in the voice. But there's more here.
There's no way we ever could.
Let's talk about his resonance. There's no way we ever could. No. There's no way we ever could. Closer. There's no way we ever could. There's no way we ever could. There's no way. He has this sense of being able to put things back. It's almost a grunt in some ways. But he's brightening it with what he does with his face and what he allows. And what I mean by what he does with his face is he'll often move his face out of the way There's no, so if I grunt, "Ah, but I've got that." Ah. And part of this grunt is leaving my nasal passage open like I've talked about. By us doing this, we are able to create a warmer, bluesier, more textured, harmonically rich sound because this sort of grunt is introducing vocal compression. And this vocal compression is done in a way where he's holding back air, he's adding more support, but he's leaving it in this sort of grunt, if I really exaggerate it, it's kind of this nasal old man kind of sound. If I'm doing this, there's more harmonics going on. I get my face out of the way. Yeah, now I've got this. There's no way I ever could. Hear the difference? There's no way I ever could. There's no way I ever could. And then I can move it forward. I can get holding back air. Get a little bit of that grit like you hear.
There's no way we
All right, especially at the beginning of this phrase.
say we stand for nothing.
Say we stand for nothing. We got to say. I know that what I'm doing sounds sort of over the top, but if we can get the over the top and then dial it in, a lot of neat things happen, especially as we start moving around with where we're more comfortable. And he does this more too. Listen.
Now we see everything that's going wrong.
Now we see everything that's going wrong. Now we see forward, not much nasal going on. Now we see everything that's going wrong. We're moving that resonance around, and it creates a whole level of girth that we wouldn't have if we were static. And if we weren't doing the grunt compression thing, but leaving it in our chest. So right here.
Rise above and feed it.
Rise above and feed it. Rise above and... That's so not this. Rise above and feed it. Rise above and feed... No, it's not this either. Rise above and feed it. Or it's not even rise above and feed it. This is to rise above and feed it. To rise above. Yeah. And then he gets those cutoffs right, and the timing lets his voice still be bouncy. That's John Mayer.
So we keep waiting on the world to change.
And then in that last phrase, you also hear that nice bluesy, waiting on the world. No, waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world. That flat 5 in there. Typical guitar player move. So cool. I hope you've enjoyed diving into the subtleties of John's voice. I really enjoy his singing and his songwriting and his guitar playing and how all of them fuse together, play off one another. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. And we'll see you for more.